Hello, good morning, everybody, and thank you for tuning into the latest instalment of Virtual Roundtables Live. I'm Andrew Morris from Inspired Business Media, and today's session is in partnership with Expansive FM to bring you an expert panel discussing on how FM and maintenance technology needs to change in the coming years in order to support evolving FM teams. You can submit any questions you want asked to our panel via the Q&A button on the right-hand side of your screen. I'll now hand over to today's moderator, Peter, to introduce himself and the rest of today's panel.
Yeah, so good morning, everyone, and welcome, a very warm welcome to the Inspire Digital Conference. Some of you may have joined us earlier on this year. We had a first conference in June, but clearly since then we've all continued to face many challenges. And I hope you, your family, your colleagues are managing during this difficult time. For those that don't know me, I'm a property and FM consultant. I more recently worked with Nestlé as their head of property and facilities management. So I left them at the beginning of this year and available to assist you if you need me. So for today, we have a fantastic and inspiring team of Nadeem, Phil, Fiona and Adam, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves in a moment. Andrew's going to stay online as well, and he'll be picking up any online questions that we might have or any comments which you can stream and add to the conference. So as we go along, if you've got some questions to ask, please use the facility to pass some questions across to us, and then we'll get the panel to answer them at the end of each question. So I'm going to make one apology, which I think is going to apply to everybody. If the doorbell goes, it's probably another delivery. So it'll be my next tin of paint for my long list of jobs to do. So we're all excused to answer the delivery if we need to. So good luck with that anyway. So to kick off, I'm going to ask Adam Mason, just to enlighten us to the differences between all these software terms. So we've got CAFM, BMS, CMMS. What is the right? So first of all, what do these mean, Adam? Can you give us some outline to that? And what do we think is the right implementation for our staff portfolio and corporate strategy? So over to you, Adam.
Good morning, everyone. Yeah, thank you, Peter. It's quite difficult because I think the market is quite confusing. And it seems to be that a lot of people use the term CAFM when coming out to look for facilities software. So CAFM is computer aided facilities management. And it's really used to sort of explain CMMS, BMMS and EAM. And, you know, for me, I said this the other day, I think it's a bit confusing because it's kind of like the word Hoover. You know, I'm hoovering my front room, and that's kind of how the clients are coming out searching for facility software with that CAFM sort of analogy. I think I just want to say what's really important around coming out looking at software is to understand what it is you're trying to solve. So if we just use CAFM as the terminology across the board, you know, you've got building maintenance, you've got space management. Are you managing engineers? Do you want to have stock control of stock, as an example? So CAFM realistically sort of pushes on to space management and workplace management. A CMMS pushes over to the side of engineering management, building maintenance management, and stock control. EAM as an example, which I know Nadeem knows more about than me, it kind of sits really at the top. It starts as an asset platform from a construction phase going all the way through into sort of looking after maintenance of a building. But I think simplistically for everybody, CAFM is kind of the overarching used term. Through there is lots of different functionality you might want that system to do, and understanding that yourself before coming out to the market. What is it you're trying to solve? Who are you trying to solve it for? And what are your problems is key to sort of making the market more simplistic.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. I was going to just go around the panel just to ask you to introduce yourself. So Adam, would you just briefly do an introduction, and then I'll switch over to the other guys, please.
Yeah, as I've just introduced myself, I'm Adam. I've worked in FM for most of my career. On the client side, looking after retail, fitness. I'm currently supporting the Expansive team with the delivery of new to the market FM software. I've been passionate around technology, supporting and aiding facilities management for a number of years. So that's why I've sort of come from client side, having been a user of it, into working with the Expansive team to try and push it forward and develop it to support FM people.
Adam, thank you very much indeed. Fiona, perhaps you'd like to introduce yourself, please.
So I'm Fiona Happiness. I currently work for UKTV. I joined in January as their head of facilities. I've been in industry just over 10 years, and I've got a history of chasing fit out and relocation projects. The majority of my experience has been sort of setting up facilities and reframing health and safety within startups. And as a result, I'm particularly passionate about using software to manage FM over sort of traditional spreadsheets. Just makes my job a lot easier considering the projects that I manage.
Fiona, thank you very much indeed. Phil, over to you. Perhaps outline your background, please.
Thanks, Peter. Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Phil Singleton. I'm the head of property and business services sourcing. So I'm basically for Swiss Re, global reinsurer. So I'm basically the procurement support guy for the property and facilities element of our business. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil. And last but not least, Nadeem, perhaps you can introduce yourself, please. Thank you.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name's Nadeem Ashraf, and I work for a little grocers called Tesco. You may have heard of us. And I've been with Tesco probably about 5 years, and my role is as the head of planning and EAM, as Adam mentioned. My background is in manufacturing engineering. I come from a factory background where CMMS, again, as Adam mentioned, was a big sort of buzzword in terms of what we used. So I worked for Associated British Foods and Hilti Industries in factory environments, and worked on the other side of the fence for actually a software provider in the CMMS space, and went around implementing systems. So I've seen it from both sides. I now work for Tesco, as I said, and I look after the EAM system, maintenance strategy, how we manage our assets, so the asset management function within Tesco. And also I set up analytics and reporting within the function. It's quite a varied role. And I support Aston Villa.
Thank you, Nadeem.
Anybody wondering?
Okay, Nadeem, thank you very much indeed. While we've got you, Nadeem, I'm just going to flick to the second part of the question I asked Adam earlier on, which is about choosing the right implementation for your people, for your portfolio and your strategy. Have you got just some comments around that for us, please? And then I'm going to go to Phil and Fiona as well.
So, I mean, just a few thoughts on implementation and selection of a system. I think Adam was right. I think a lot of people do get confused by these various phrases, and actually, I think Adam nailed it when he said that what we should be more interested in is what are we trying to achieve? What are our aim and objectives? Rather than get a generic system and trying to mold it around what we do. I think in terms of, there's this classic sort of discussion around why do so many of the systems fail? I think that people talk about 70% of implementation of EAM or CMMS type systems fail. And really interestingly, I think, not one of the top 10 reasons that we were looking at are down to the system. It's generally down to lack of aim and objectives, lack of senior management commitment, lack of change management, program management, lack of resource, where you think you can just put a system in and ultimately it will change what you do, and you don't change your behaviors or your ways of work around it. So I think just in terms of my experience of, how we go about looking for the right system is we start off with what we want from it. We then go out to look at who the players are, whatever they call themselves. It could be FM, it could be, you know, EAM. But if they can deliver what we need, and also I think what's really important is the people in that organization, do they understand your business? And an understanding of what we're trying to achieve and how we can achieve it, I think for me is one of the most critical factors when we're choosing a business partner. Do they understand our business and who are they?
Nadeem, thank you very much indeed. Fiona, we were having a chat the other day about these sophisticated systems, but you also mentioned the predominance of Excel spreadsheets as well in the FM world to record data. Perhaps you can give me a view on the right implementation for your people, the portfolio, and maybe, I'm not sure spreadsheets are the corporate strategy, but perhaps give us some insight, please.
I've just found sort of in my career, I've walked into several companies where they've used spreadsheets and Excel to sort of log the information, usually because of the level of the team or the kind of area of facilities that they sort of concentrate on. So they would go, if they were going to move away from spreadsheets, it would be for something like a CAFM system rather than sort of a system that integrates everything. I just find that in terms of training, it can often be, they think it's a lot easier with junior members of staff to go for, let's just use an Excel sheet rather than adopting a whole training program to sort of bring the staff up to a certain level. I've always found like having the different types of systems quite limiting as well, because it kind of limits the insight. If you've got more than one site or more than one location, a lot of office space, there's only so much you can do with a CAFM system. There's only so much you can do with an Excel sheet, and it does require sort of the manpower to keep going in and checking. And as we're finding now, logging non-compliance is not the way forward. You need to action it. So having a system in place is that prompt to action.
Fiona, thank you. And then Phil, perhaps some comments from you around the right implementation for your people portfolio strategy.
Yeah, sure. And I kind of, you know, underline a few of the points already made, really, about really kind of understanding the needs of the business both now and in the future. And I think, you know, one of the perhaps challenges that we've had is that this is just CAFM systems are seen as just a tool of the facilities department, and certainly my experience in providing procurement support in the past is that this always is a bit of a challenge to understand exactly what it is we're trying to deliver and benefits. And I think with, you know, the rise of new technology and particularly the integration potential that Fiona mentioned, I think it's becoming increasingly important that these systems are seen not just as a small operational tool, but more as an overarching a provider of data and intelligence from the building. And it kind of doesn't feel, certainly in our environment, that we're there yet.
So Phil, that leads me very neatly into our kind of second question, actually. So I think we've all recognized there's some barriers for implementation, mass adoption of this implementation in our industry. So what do you think those barriers might be, and how can we drive that to a better conclusion? Because I personally believe that across our industry, we're probably only seeing, you know, the top maybe 20% of industry actually using these systems. So, you know, what are the barriers to that, and what can be some of the drivers to get there? So back to you, Phil.
Okay, well, I'll pick a couple, and we'll go around and allow people to kind of have the. I'll try not to cover all of them as if I could. I think usability is probably one of the biggest. So, you know, we're reliant upon end users, people who just occupy the building, who really, in general terms, don't really want to be too bothered in terms of providing, you know, feedback and raising tickets and kind of all that all of that piece, really. So providing a simple and effective kind of user interface, I think, is one of the big challenges. And I think the other one, from my point of view, is around integration. So, and again, as this technology starts to kind of coincide a little bit more. I think there's a tremendous potential that hasn't yet been realised around the overall kind of higher level benefits to this, rather than just providing an easier way for the facilities department to kind of process tickets and deal with faults. So there's a couple anyway.
Okay, Phil, thank you very much indeed. Adam, what's your thought? What's looking from the industry side of things, what do you think those barriers are, and how can we drive it to a better conclusion across the industry?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a, because the future of CAFM for me is so important. There's a lot of work that we need to do, but to be able to understand why we need to be there, we've got to look at why people are coming out to the market at the moment, and then why is it that it's not being successful. And there's a couple of things that are driving people out. So in FM, there's a lot of people coming to the market for looking after cost management. Yeah, so there is a lot of unmanaged FM. There's a lot of wasted cost, a lot of wasted time. So the first thing people are looking for is to come and manage those cost bases. And then with the complexities of compliance growing, and obviously we're seeing at the moment there's a lot more sort of visits to businesses and premises to check on compliance, especially around COVID secure. Compliance is another big driver why people are coming out to the market to look for facility software to support them. And I honestly believe that you can't achieve full compliance and full reduction of cost without the support and help of technology along that journey. And the other side, so we've done some polls that customers are coming out because they know that they're not giving their customers satisfaction, and they want to be able to improve their customer satisfaction score, whether that be within retail, whether it be in an office environment. So how can FM sort of start improving that? So that's a driver. The main costs are the main barriers, I would say, really simple. At the moment, is cost, complexity, and low success rate of what they're looking into. So they're looking at a 20, Nadeem said it earlier, they're looking at sort of a 20, maybe 30% maximum success rate of these platforms being put into businesses. And it goes on to a lot of the reasons what Phil said around integration and ease of use. That's where we've got to start sort of pushing the future of CAFM into. But they're the things that I think are why people are still looking, and then the reason why people are stopping their journey and not implementing at the moment.
Adam, thank you. Fiona, any thoughts? Drivers and barriers. What about your industry?
I think when it comes to sort of FM software, you don't know what you're capable of managing better until you're presented with a solution for it. And again, it's understanding what's out there rather than limiting it. Like you were saying, Adam, people are going out there for cost management. There's so much more to the systems available that an integrated system that covers everything, you might not be looking for this particular area, but sort of being presented with it, that opportunity is kind of what I believe a lot of facilities teams need, because a lot of them are quite junior. They don't know what they're looking for until you say, actually, this is something also that you can do with the system, rather than just looking at it for maintenance and cost management.
Thank you, Fiona. So Nadeem, same to you really. Drivers, barriers, complexity, low success. What's your view on this?
No, I think some really good points already made, and I think Fiona's point around understanding. I think sometimes trying to understand what benefits these systems can bring and how it relates to your industry. I think trying to put the two together sometimes it's an unknown. Sometimes they think it's a Pandora's box of magic tricks, and and I also think there's a fear of change, a genuine fear of change, and I think some of it is quite well founded. Because I have seen people spend millions of pounds on a system like SAP and introduce complexity and go backward. And I've seen people spend a few £1,000s on an off-the-shelf package and actually revolutionize their operation. So I think technology, if not executed correctly, can bring a lot of complexity and there is that fear of change. But actually, if it's done well and you can see where it can fit into your organization and you understand the benefits it can bring and the return on investment from that, then I think people, once they see those benefits, will buy into it. But I think there's an opportunity for us to sort of, demonstrate how it relates to people and industries.
So Nadeem, one of the things that I've seen in the past few years, actually, there's been a lot of challenge at the boardroom level to me and my team about implementing what they see as a back office system rather than a front operations type system, etc. What do you think the best ways to increase our boardroom approval for implementing this type of technology and things alongside it? How can we influence the board, Nadeem?
I think the board, like any other group of other stakeholder out there, all their interest is what's in it for me. How does it improve the operation? And again, if you're talking to a technician and how we talk to them about our CMMS, EAM type systems, we have to show them what the benefits are. I think, and again, just picking up on Fiona's point earlier around spreadsheets, there's a phrase that we use quite a lot at the moment, or have done for a number of years, which is data is the new oil. So once you can harness your data, you can understand your operation, where your opportunities are, where your bottlenecks are, and it is a minefield trying to do that in spreadsheets. And whether or not, obviously, you can imagine with the scale, complexity, and pace of an organization like Tesco, having visibility and control over our operation is absolutely paramount in real time as well. So knowing what's going on at any point in time is really key for us. So I think, what we try to provide when we talk to senior managers or middle managers or technicians is we have to show them what their investment or what the opportunities are from these systems. And I think another part of what really is important to us and what drives us is the review process. We always say most important part of our operation is review. And how can you do that without those insights, without the data? And we have a lot of people, managers, who spend a disproportionate amount of time trawling through spreadsheets to try and find that one bit of that nugget that will give them the opportunity to improve. So I think what we tend to do is we've got I'm rolling out a number of phrases here, so I do apologize. But simple, intuitive, and relevant is a key phrase for us when it comes to providing data. Don't provide people with a whole ream of data and ask them to go and find that needle in a haystack. But when our stakeholders log on, for example, it knows who they are, knows what they do, and provides the data that they need for their function. So again, sorry, I've got into probably a bit more detail than you probably expected, but I think it is about demonstrating the benefits that these sort of systems and their implementation can bring to operation.
Thank you, Nadeem. I'm just going to ask you just a little add-on to that as well, and I'll go to the other guys as well. Do you think it's been different? Do you think the demand for information from the board has been different under the current crisis?
I think the demand for technology and working remotely has, within the current pandemic that we've been in, it's been one of the most incredible social experiments that we could have undertaken, to be honest. Who would have thought you could work from home and, all the challenges that come with it, all the opportunities come with it. And I think working remotely is going to be certainly one of those activities. There's definitely opportunities there. And I think that, when we look at our technicians, for them to do e-learning, for example, remotely, for them to connect with other, engineers so that they can actually show them what they're looking at. I think there have been some barriers and some downsides, but there's also been some incredible opportunities that we've seen through the pandemic. But I think it will certainly change the way we operate, and I think there'll be certainly some significant opportunities over the next 12 months to invest in our hardware and our software to support the remote working that I think we'll continue to do.
Okay, Nadeem, thank you. I'm going to go to Phil now. Phil, so back to the main question was, what's the best way to increase boardroom approval for the implementation of enhancing these technologies, etc.? And do you see there's been a difference in the last 12 months as we've gone through this crisis as well?
Yeah, I think there has actually, and I think it probably reflects on it's actually in some ways, introducing new systems like this has traditionally been quite a difficult sell. The board are generally interested in a few things. Does it save money? Does it save resource? Does it give us competitive advantage as a company? And those things are actually quite difficult to demonstrate with something which is seen as a more local and specific piece of technology. I think what's starting to happen is that people are becoming perhaps more demanding about the environment that they work in, and offices are perhaps less taken for advantage in terms of taken for granted in terms of what they provide for people. And I think the whole idea of workplace will become more important as people start to really focus on, okay, so what do I need to come into the office for? I think issues like safety and security become more important when it comes to managing the office environment. And for that, you need data, and you need effective systems that are able to monitor and manage that. And I think that represents perhaps a bigger opportunity to demonstrate how worthwhile the introduction of modern systems are as well. And I think also linked to the previous point that we've made around integration with other technologies such as sensor technology and things like that. So I think traditionally it's been a challenge to do this, but I think there are some quite specific opportunities now that are emerging because of the, particularly as you say, in the last 12 months. So that's my view. A sense of optimism, perhaps.
Okay, and do you sense, Phil, that your board are listening to you more at the moment because of the crisis, or are you getting a better reception from them?
I think in the short term it's been difficult because everything has really just been thrown up into the air, and until you then start to have a real a forward strategic look about what your footprint and workplace is likely to look like in the future, I think in the short term this can act as a barrier to further investment. But I think once we get beyond that and you then start to put your workplace strategy in place, then I think that paves the way for, okay, so the next phase of that is how do we fill that with the right type of technology that allows us to manage it in the future. But I think we've got to probably continue to weather the storm perhaps a little bit until we can get beyond this current situation. That's my kind of sense of where we are.
Okay, thank you, Phil. Fiona, what are the bosses at TV thinking about this, and how can we improve their awareness, or what are you doing to improve their awareness?
So, I mean, I think I mentioned last week, I found they've been a lot more receptive in the current climate. There's a big push for sort of health and safety compliance in line with infection control and sort of updated fire regs following the Grenfell tragedy. HSE visits have increased. Our workers, we've got a big push for wellbeing, so our workers are very much aware of that. So there's been an increase in whistleblowing just in general. So they're very anything to do with health and safety compliance, they're very receptive to it. I mean, I've just had an email while we're on the phone saying, when have I booked in the next COVID risk assessment? We had one on Tuesday. So we're very much trying to sort of look after our staff. I think with everything that's going on at the moment, all of our FM tasks, FM manager tasks, they've always been physical activities. So there's never been a time that we've had to sort of push to work virtually. So I think there's a huge opportunity for these systems to be able to help us work remotely and do our jobs better. And with everyone working from home, when you bring that to the board as an option, because they're quite keen that there is no rush for our staff to return to the office. We've only had 3% of staff actually willing to go back following a survey. So they're very much aware of that. So anything that can enable teams to do their work from home is easier to present in the boardroom, especially when it's obviously in line with health and safety.
Do we not have a challenge back at the office though, Fiona? Because we've obviously got to keep these buildings running, different locations running as well. And, you know, whilst we can work remotely, there's this challenge of having a number of our engineers, for example, our support staff, and having to go back in to keep regular inspections going, etc. as well. Are you finding that? And are the boards understanding of that and sympathetic of that?
The board is sympathetic. I think one of the backbone of this is our relationship with our suppliers and our subcontractors. So it's having the contractors being comfortable to be on site by themselves and communicate remotely with us. And again, having these systems in place is that sort of middleman between the two of us. So it works quite well.
Thank you, Fiona. Adam, over to you. So you're the man that's having to influence these FM managers, directors, and I guess going into the boardroom as well. So what's the best ways to increase their approval and to get you a bit more business, Adam?
Yeah, so I actually agree with what everybody said, but I think one part that the FM do need to become is more commercial within a business. So connecting the pieces of data that drives business value is absolutely key to have an impact in the boardroom. And what I mean by that is, you know, poor FM can have a detrimental effect to a business. So, you know, poor customer reviews, poor feedback, you know, and part of your journey to start this should be going off and speaking to the people that this is going to impact in a really collaborative way. So the first part of stepping out to look at a software system, in my opinion, is collecting and understanding your customer data. You know, is understanding reviews that are left online, any feedback data that you're getting from those customers. We've got more customer data than we've ever had before. So actually that's really rich information for any strategy an FMO is going to put together, in my opinion. Go off and do the same with your staff. Speak to the people, your colleagues, because they're your customers as well, and gain their information, gain their data. What's their biggest issues? What's their problems? What can you do to support them more? And then can you sort of, through the information you've got, and Excel's really difficult to do this with, but you can do it. You start aligning some of that business and, that FM and maintenance data that you've got. Because I think you'll start finding some real links to poor reviews and poor staff feedback with poorly maintained locations and buildings and retail shops, as an example. Yeah, and when you're starting to do that, if you look back at the commercial sales, so, you know, when was that unit successful? What did it look like when it was successful? What are your customers telling you today why it's not successful? What are your staff telling you today why it's not successful? Looking at the maintenance data, how has spend dropped? How has that impacted the look, the feel, the customer journey, the staff journey? You can start sort of saying, okay, so we've seen a drop in sales, we've seen a higher turnover in staff, and I can see that we're spending a lot less on maintenance. And pictures speak 1,000 words in my view, so you get your pictures in of the unit you're looking at. Once you start pulling all of that information together, you start painting a real business proposition and real value. And if you can't do that, I think that is absolutely key to implementing a CAFM system and a facilities maintenance software system that starts enabling you to link that information. So if you can't do it, and you can't confirm compliance, you can't confirm the look and the feel and the brand standards and everything else as an FM team, you need help. And the help out there is in my mind, software. So not being able to do it drives an argument. Being able to gain that information, but it take a long time, be very difficult to gain, can also aid an argument. Because let's be perfectly honest, take it to its simplistic view. You've got an air conditioning unit that's failed. I guarantee you in a retail unit, customer complaints are going to go up, staff complaints are going to go up. Sales will drop because people won't walk through the front door, they won't dwell, they'll leave. You fix the air conditioning unit, you go back to where it was before. So you haven't lost any sales. You then improve that environment, can you get sales back? And once you start reporting to the board, all of these kind of metrics and information and data, the FM platform becomes business value to them. It becomes a protector of whatever it is they're looking after, sales or anything else, customer satisfaction, staff satisfaction. That's where I think, taking away, because I agree with everyone say, just that commercial aspect, I think FM, we need to embrace it. We need to go and get that information. And what a great chance to collaborate with the whole business and get all their pain points, understand their journeys, understand their thoughts, their feelings, and then work out how your department is going to help them with the support and aid of technology. I think that's when we start seeing us adding true value. That's when I see us winning over board, and because we're talking to them in their language, which is, you know, let's be honest, making the business a profit.
And just to my other points earlier on, Adam, have you seen any change in terms of the uptake of system technology in the last 12 months, you know, particularly during the crisis?
I think, being honest, I think for anybody to get anything signed off at the moment is tough. Through a board level, you've got to have a really strong argument. You've got to have done your homework, because it is putting cost in. Can take a lot of cost out, but it is putting cost in. So I think the people that have done their homework, done their due diligence, built their business case, absolutely are getting sign off. I see there's a lot more FMers and FM people coming out to look for support, guidance and help through technology. They're probably just struggling to get that final sort of sign off. So we've seen, you know, lots of people come and see a demonstration for our platform, which is brilliant. I think everybody's still just in that phase of struggling to get things signed off. And rightly so, because we don't know what the future is going to look like, what our buildings are going to be, what our estate format's going to look like, and what long-term impact this is going to have. I would urge FMers to go out and collaborate with their business if they really want this support of technology, to go out there to collaborate with their business to make sure it's a real no-brainer and it's not seen, as Phil said, sometimes as that FM only function. It's seen as a business support software.
Adam, thank you very much. Andrew, I'm just going to flick into you because I noticed we've got a couple of questions have come in. I don't know if you want to direct them to particular individuals or experts.
Yeah, sure. So we got one question from John Knight looking at how would you say we can reduce the loss of creativity with remote working through the use of technology systems? I think I'd like to pinpoint Fiona for this. I know she's got probably one of the most creative team out of the panel here. So Fiona.
So reduce the loss of creativity. That's a good question. Probably ask my team this later. So because we've just started sort of doing this, it's been a lot of FaceTime and video clips and pictures. So I think we've had to be creative with it to make it work. I think it's probably increased creativity because of all the obstacles in place because of access in the building. So yeah. I think we don't lose creativity. You definitely have to be creative with it to make it work.
Okay, fantastic. Anybody else got any thoughts on that one?
I would just like to say I think Fiona's absolutely right. I've seen lots of creative ways companies are staying engaged with their teams. I can see the use of technology has gone through the roof to support that. One of the things I do think people will miss is going into a room with a big whiteboard and bouncing off each other. And it's understanding how you can do that on these platforms, because as we know, one person speaks, one person's got the microphone, and it's very difficult to interact over. So I think that is an important thing that we have lost through this. But overall, I think lots of businesses have done it really well, and lots of FM teams have supported that, and I think that should be congratulated.
It's meant you sort of reach out for different systems as well. Like randomly, we've started using Trello, and that's only been since lockdown. again, to try and to monitor stuff and to pick up what's going on with the suppliers, because we haven't, they're not integrated into our system. But obviously, if you've got a Trello account, it's easier to just navigate with that, with both of us using it. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Okay, great. And then yeah, John just then commented again, saying it's the whiteboard approach that he was thinking about in terms of obviously the point that you mentioned there, Adam, as well. So yeah, great. And then a question from Steve Aldridge, then looking at where does remote monitoring fit into the whole technology piece, particularly working from home at the moment. I don't know if anybody wants to weigh in on that.
Yeah, I'm happy to address that. It's a very good point, because I think for me, with smarter assets, it is adapting our approach to how we maintain our state. Previously, we would have to set it there. But again, if you look at the opportunity as well from, it's horrible to say, from the pandemic, where we're not having managers to travel up and down the motorway, spend 6 hours traveling up and down to go to one meeting. Actually, there are some efficiencies from working remotely, which I don't think we would have discovered if we hadn't gone through this this pandemic. So I think that, looking at how we are viewing, and we can term it as the Internet of Things and so on. We have lots of assets that are resident within our estate that can tell us. Now, we used to do remote monitoring of alarms, and I think the challenge with remote monitoring of alarms is when an alarm has gone off, it's too late. You've already got the issue. So what we're looking to do now is we're looking for these smarter assets, which is the early signs of deterioration and the early signs of distress. And if we can remotely fix it, it's just a much quicker, more cost-effective way of maintaining our estate. And I think that the companies that are looking at these, we pick out a few other buzzwords, AI and IoT, and really trying to leverage those technologies. I think remote monitoring of assets, given the way technology is going, is definitely a big area of growth for us.
Yeah, I'd agree, and I think one of the many things that this current situation has done is it's accelerated certain trends that were already there as well, and I guess remote monitoring is one of those. So for pure practical reasons, to have remote monitoring in smaller sites has been a trend for many years. I think possibly what we're going to see is that balance kind of shifting towards the larger sites as well, and people recognizing that whereas if you had an engineer on site who would do specific hands-on monitoring, that may not be necessary all of the time. So it may lead to a trend to increase the amount of remote monitoring, particularly in the larger areas, and therefore not totally encouraging people to come into the office the whole time. So I think it'll probably accelerate that trend as well.
I think this leads us very neatly into our final question. Actually, I'm conscious of time as well, so I think this is a kind of perfect timing for the next question. And it's about, what do we think the future for CAFM and workplace technology will look like? Interesting, in the past few weeks, I've had a number of software companies come to me, I think really about looking after staff management in the FM environment, clearly making sure that we're tracking and tracing people, that people are doing medical check-ins, etc. And that's been a new development for me, I think. But I'm going to go around the panel, and let me start with Fiona. What do you think the future will look like for CAFM and workplace technology?
I mean, I would hope that we could lose the different derivatives. I keep saying an integrated system, a singular system for all, that is more under the belt of workplace management systems, and will provide the capabilities for every type of FM team in every industry. There's a lot. We often end up in situations where certain facilities functions sit in other areas of the business, sometimes the wrong areas of the business. So you'll have asset management with IT or DSE with HR. If we have one integrated system, you may not be using those parts at that time, but as you move on, headcount could change, business direction could change. It provides the capability to bring it all in-house. So I would hope that we move to a place where there isn't the CAFM or the BMS. It's just one system with all of the capabilities that a company can grow to use as and when they need to, as they grow, as they expand, as they move to more sites, as they go international. That's what I'd like to see.
That sounds great. So, Adam, is that on the horizon?
I think it's really interesting. So, I've taken a sort of different approach to what does the next sort of 5 years or so look like, and where we're going to go in the future, because everyone's going to be talking about AI, sensors, and I do agree that all of this is going to be really important as we sort of move forward. But I go back to the beginning of technology adoption in FM, and with such low rates of adoption at the moment, and we should be focusing on why that actually is the case. And I think we know why it's the case, but we should really focus on it and start creating platforms that people can use really easily. It just needs to be simple for our customers to use, simple for our customers to understand. It needs to be, I use the word, easy to implement. It needs to be easy to gain insights from. Doesn't matter what you're using it for. So let's say building maintenance, workplace management. All of them just need to be easy to use, easy to integrate, easy to gain insights from. I use the average saying, you're not trained in LinkedIn, you're not trained in Facebook. These mass training programs to implement workplace technology and CAFM systems and everything else, it needs to be a thing of the past. We need to make the offering intuitive and easy to use. Gone are the days. I mean, I remember the fire alarms. We spoke about this. Remember the fire alarms kind of situation, closed protocol. You had to get the engineer to come back in and do the work. API integration is an absolute must. There must all be open API links. We must be able to create a technology ecosystem, as Fiona said, to support lots of different functions. They should all be able to talk to each other. Everybody should be able to use it and engage with it in whatever level that they need to. Because the one thing I'm finding at the moment is the FM technology solutions are not always making life better. And when you introduce technology, it should be about making your life better, easier, quicker, to support the people that you look after in whatever way that you need to do it. So software providers really need to start looking at that whole FM supply chain, and user chain, I guess would be my word, and start looking at how they're going to use it, how they're going to interact with it, what are their function, because there's a person logging something at the beginning of this, and there's a person probably having to carry out the task that it's saying at the end. And it's how you're interlinking those two people and that communication that's really key to make it super fast, super simple and easy to use. So my wish, outside of all the IoT and the further development of software, is that we really spend the time to understand why we're not using it, why things like e-commerce are so far ahead of us, and we start making software that's really easy for people to use, does what it says on the tin, rather than all these acronyms, and people start really seeing the benefit of doing it.
Adam, thank you. Nadeem, what's your thinking on this? What do you think it's going to look like, the world of CAFM and workplace technology going forward?
I think technology as a whole is, a company or an organization that doesn't adapt their technology or adopt new technologies will get left behind. I mean, it goes without saying, because of the fast-moving sort of environment that we work in, and I think leveraging technology. I think as we said, it's not the technology, it's how you utilize the technology, how you implement it, how you get buy-in from it, how it delivers your specific business benefits. I think is the key. I think in terms of the future, I think because we are going to rely on technology a lot more, and we do have smarter assets than this connectivity opportunity that it gives us. I think it's going to also push our hardware, and our hardware needs to, we are reviewing not just the software that we're using, but also the hardware to leverage it. Because if we are going to start to do a lot more remote working, and we are going to, start to monitor assets, and we are going to start to provide people with their own sort of workspace, well, the hardware is going to get stressed as well as the, ability to use it and the software. I think the question about the disparate systems that we have, and I think one of the cutting edge, well, not cutting edge, that's basic really when you think about it, but AI is one of the ways to join up these systems. We talk about in organizations a one team approach, and do production and quality and maintenance work together as one team. Well, it's the same principle, I would suggest, with technology. Does your financial system and your remote monitoring system and your asset management system and your energy system, do they work as one team? And the answer is quite often is no. And how do you get them to work as one team? And one of the opportunities is AI. Because when you have an AI platform where you can put your rules in and your algorithms and and it can take data from the different systems. And for example, you could take a feed from the weather system, and that could feed the remote monitoring system to tell the HVAC system what to do. It could feed the workforce planning system, say, don't send any jobs out on the roof because it's a force fine gale. And it's about how you can leverage that data. But before you can get to AI, you've got to make sure you've got good data. And that's the key, having that good data and having that sound platform. Because as I said it earlier, data is the new oil. If you can leverage data and you can review that and identify your opportunities, I think that's where you'll get that competitive edge.
Nadeem, thank you. Phil, I'm going to come to you, but I'm going to throw in a comment here, because one of the things that we've all seen as an increase recently is the amount of technology we can manage on our phones individually, and how that might help what we call this FM user train that Fiona was talking about. Maybe that's the opportunity where we've seen things like billing software in the finance world, etc. So over to you, Phil, for the last part of this. What do you think CAFM and workplace technology is going to look like? And could it run through our phones, and could that user community be even wider than just the FM guys and girls that are working in our industry?
Yeah, I think it's a really great point, and we can see this happening in various parts of our lives that we didn't think possible in the past. A brief distraction. I worked for a mobile phone company about 15 years ago, and it was about the time that voice was a part of voice on people's mobile phones as part of everyday life. Text had suddenly taken off, that people were sending each other little messages, and we were trying to work out what the next big technology was and what was going to be the next thing on the phone. I remember a very inspiring marketing guy standing up in the middle of the meeting and holding up his phone and saying, "And I want this to become my remote control for life." And we all laughed at him, to be quite honest, because it just didn't seem possible. And it's taken a few years, and we've got to that stage. But I wonder what he's doing now. But he's probably the one laughing now. So I think that technology's been around and continues to develop at a faster and faster pace. I think the days of long-term investments in expensive systems are starting to go now. And the other thing is, I think we've talked a lot about the problems that we have now in terms of implementing systems, about usability and compatibility with our existing infrastructure. And I think we're also entering a very disruptive period of what we use our buildings for and how we occupy them. And I can see an awful lot of change in that environment. And I think what we need are kind of slick user interfaces, ease of use to drive that, but that only solves the problem of today, really. And I think what we should be looking for is, what solves the problem? How do these systems help us to manage what's likely to be, I think, quite a changeable and quite a volatile period that we're we're entering as well. I think if we get it right, it has some tremendous possibilities. I think if all we seek to do is just manage our current environment a bit more efficiently and in a more of a coordinated way, then that doesn't fully kind of realise the potential that we've got here. For me, it's all about preparing for the future.